My next guest has sent his own proposal for job creation in Western New York to the president. It focuses on infrastructure, medical research, and manufacturing opportunities. Joining me now to explain more is Congressman Brian Higgins. Congressman, thank you so much for your time.
Good to be with you, Liz.
So infrastructure, let's start there. You and the president actually seem to be of one mind. Of course, we don't know what the president's going to say specifically, but the infrastructure bank is something that the president is going to include, we understand. What is your thought on what you've seen so far from him?
Well, I think you need a infrastructure program that is robust. The problem with the economy right now is lack of aggregate demand. And when businesses aren't spending, individuals aren't spending, we have to find a way of putting people back to work. And putting people back to work will grow the economy, and it will create an opportunity for sustained growth moving forward.
So this isn't actually, the infrastructure bank isn't like a WPA. It's not a fully government-funded program. It would actually be a government incentive for private investment, right? Do you think that the Republicans might be able to buy into that?
I'm not quite sure, but they ought to, because you know, the whole idea is to get this economy going by making investments that have been deferred. And I was reading a report in the state of Nevada where deferring road and bridge construction by 2 years would increase the cost of those repairs by a factor of 5. So when you defer infrastructure investment, when you cheat future generations, when you ignore festering environmental problems, you cheat future generations.
You actually make in your letter to the president a specific reference to the Peace Bridge. You and I have talked about this before. We've talked about it on this show. I mean, the storm in New York has highlighted weakness throughout New York's infrastructure, but you know, it seems to me that New York's infrastructure has been so compromised in some cases that I'm not sure how much investment actually it would take. I mean, do you even think that the state and the federal government can afford what it would take to get the state up to a competitive level?
Well, they can't afford not to, because eventually you're going to have to address those problems. And unfortunately, with the Schoharie Creek Bridge, as you may remember several years ago, we responded to tragedy, and that cost us a lot more in terms of treasury, but also in lives as well. So it's an urgent reminder that, you know, we have to get left of this. We've got to get out front of this. We have to ensure that these repairs are made when they are needed and not deferred when they're more expensive later on and potentially pose a public safety threat.
You're expecting, and we all are expecting the president actually to say that he wants a $300 billion jobs investment. Right? This is sort of the meat of the speech that we know of so far. A, do you think that that's actually enough? And B, do you think that it's doable given the partisan divide in D.C. right now?
Well, $300 billion in investment in infrastructure is not enough. It should be more. But it would be a good start. And the fact of the matter is those who oppose this oppose deficit financing, infrastructure building in Iraq and Afghanistan. And I think it's time that we do nation building right here at home. A strong, prosperous America is the greatest influence to other countries in the world. And, you know, it's a changing world right now. Fareed Zakaria wrote the book, The Post-American World. And he said that America is not falling behind economically. It's what he refers to as the rise of the rest. That they're making investments in the kinds of things that we've stopped investing in. And it's created greater competition in a globalized economy in the 21st century.
One thing that we haven't heard yet, and I want to stress that we do not yet know the entirety of the president's speech, and we will be taking it live here on Capitol Tonight tomorrow. We haven't yet heard any mention of investment in medical infrastructure. That's something that you think actually is necessary. Why?
It's critically important to places like Buffalo. You know, we had a manufacturing, industrial economy that represented probably 50% of the Western New York economy for the past 50 years. That's changed profoundly. So what we see growing up in downtown Buffalo is a new economy steeped in healthcare. We have the Buffalo Niagara Medical Campus, a $1.5 billion economic impact. 8,500 people work at the various institutions, 9 anchor institutions and 20 private and public companies. So we have to make those kinds of investments to create jobs that will sustain growth in the national economy, but also the local economy as well. Right now, we're experiencing about 2% annual economic growth. That growth is not enough to sustain the current unemployment rate of a 9.1% or 14 million people out of work. So again, the best way to deal with the unemployment issue and the debt and deficit issue is to grow jobs. And within our generation, we saw at the end of 2000, the federal government had a $258 billion budgetary surplus. Why? Because we created 22 million private sector jobs. But it's going to require an investment on the public part, where we can borrow money today at about 2% for 10-year Treasury bonds. We ought to be taking advantage of that to grow the economy, to reduce debt and deficit over the longer term, and to put people back to work.
Obviously, this is all coming at a time when politics is really the focus because of the 2012 election cycle is already in high gear. You had a bit of a skirmish between the Republicans and the president about the timing of the speech. Before you even get to the substance of the speech, the timing of the speech. Your thoughts on that whole sort of rigmarole, if you will, and do you believe that the president gave in to Boehner, to John Boehner?
Well, the speech and the initiative to grow the economy should have been made much earlier than the scheduled speech on Thursday. But the fact of the matter is, you know, our problems are uniquely American with uniquely American solutions, which is the obligation of both parties, Democrat and Republican. If you look at the contemporary history of what contributed most to the current debt and deficit, it's out of control Republican spending. 2 tax cuts in 2001, 2003, unpaid for. 2 wars, unpaid for. A Medicare drug prescription program, unpaid for. Now, you don't even have to look at it politically, look at it arithmetically. If you do tax cuts, if it succeeds, what does it do? It promotes new business investment and job growth. These tax cuts, disproportionately targeted for the very, very wealthy, have not found their way back into the economy, and we find ourselves in a recessionary mode that we have to grow out of.
Congressman?
So I think...
I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but I'm afraid we're going to run out of time, and I just want to clarify this point. If you believe that the president should have given this particular speech earlier, when would you have liked to have heard it from him, and what do you think took him so long?
Well, I think earlier on, I think a fight has to be picked, and that has to be, are we going to fight for the American people and jobs, because that's the #1 priority, or are we going to continue to allow this political nonsense to go on in the Congress? The American people aren't being served well by Congress, and people are putting politics in front of country, and that's as clear as it can be. Think about this for a moment. The President and the Speaker had the framework of a deal to cut $4 trillion over a 10-year period. $3 in spending cuts for every $1 in